What's going on, guys? I hope that you're all having a wonderful day today. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, we're going to be doing a spoiler discussion for Deadpool and Wolverine. I've finally gotten the chance to see this movie 2 times, so now I feel like I have a more in-depth understanding of the film since, I've seen it twice, of course. As you guys can tell, I am not in my usual studio. It's just a beautiful Saturday, so I figured, you know what? Let's go down to my local park and record a video because, God, this weather's so nice, and I do not feel like being inside. But guys, with that being said, if you guys like this video, please consider dropping a like, and also if you want to subscribe, hit that subscribe button. I am so close to getting to 1,000 subscribers, and of course the most important thing, I want to hear your thoughts on this movie. That's it. This is a spoiler discussion, so don't feel like, oh my god, I can't say this or I can't say this. Comment whatever you want down below because whoever's watching this has probably seen the movie, including me, and I want to talk about this film, so let's get into it. This is going to be a bit more of like an unedited rant type of video, or again, like an open discussion. So I actually have my computer right here just with like a couple of notes so that I just made sure that I didn't like miss anything huge. So yeah, let's just dive into this spoiler review because I said the other day in my review, let's start with that. Let's lay a foundation here. The other day in my review, I said, honestly, this movie's hard to talk about on the positive side and even on the negative side without spoiling it on a basic level. Like even the plot, which again, the trailers didn't even really show. In that review, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm going to be honest with you though. After the second watch, I feel a lot better about the film, but I would still give it a 4 out of 5 stars. So after 2 watches, 1 regular Thursday night and 1 in IMAX last night, which was sick, by the way. I'm not a big IMAX person, but I really enjoyed it. I am solidifying my rating as 4 out of 5 stars, but a more confident 4 out of 5 stars. After that first viewing, I was like, damn, just because of the nerves were all up, the hype was up, I didn't know what to expect. I was a little bit disappointed. I still really enjoyed it, but it just wasn't that 10 out of 10 that I thought it was going to be, but that's okay because that was very unfair to think in the first place. But after my second watch, since I already knew what to expect, what I was going in to see, I was able to just sit back, relax, and just enjoy what I was watching. And a lot of my negatives kind of turned into things that I thought were just fine or even positives, and a lot of the things that I liked, I started to really like. So I feel like everything kind of got bumped up a little bit because, again, the nerves were settled. I wasn't worried about, oh my god, what's going to happen next? What cameo is going to show up? This and that. It was like I already had that. I already had my expectations set. There was a standard there. So now it's like a more confident 4 out of 5. I feel happy about giving this movie 4 out of 5. Where on my first watch, I was a little bit like, oh yeah, I guess it's a 4 out of 5. So I'm very satisfied with this movie. Now that I've gotten that over with, let's actually dive into these spoilers because, oh my god, I'm just so thrilled to actually dive into talking about this film. Alright, so the way that I'm going to be doing this is kind of just going through the movie plot point by plot point. Honestly, that's kind of tough to do because it's hard to discuss an entire film, but I have a list here just going over general moments and a couple of other things like all the cameos and stuff, so we will get there. But again, this is going to be more of a longer video probably, so let's just start off with the intro. Guys, this intro is literally the best part of the movie. And again, sometimes if I say the intro of a film is the best part of a film, people think, oh, that means that the rest of the movie sucks. No, because I have 2 examples of movies that do the same thing. Up, where the first 10 minutes are perfection, then the rest of the movie, while it isn't as amazing, is still so good. And The Batman. I think that intro to The Batman with the something in the way scene, the Riddler murder scene, and the Batman like beat down on like the knockout gang, that scene, that intro is so phenomenal with his monologue. It's so great, but the rest of the film is so great as well. Sorry guys, there's gonna be cars probably passing by. But I think that the intro of this movie is literally the best part of the film. And that's not a slight to the rest of the film. It is so unbelievable. When I watched it for the first time, that's the one scene that I did enjoy more on first watch, only because it was such a surprise. My jaw has never dropped harder in a theater. And it's not because it was a surprise or this or that. It was just so shocking that it was like, what am I watching right now? Getting into the details, of course, we have Justin Timberlake's Bye 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 playing, okay? While Deadpool is killing TVA agents with Logan's dead adamantium skeleton. And the action, it's so kinetic, the camera work is so beautiful, and you're seeing the credits roll while he's stabbing someone with a bone. It says like Ryan Reynolds, and then Hugh Jackman's skull, well, Wolverine's dead skull flies across and it says Hugh Jackman on the forehead. It's so uniquely stylized, the choreography is phenomenal, it's brutal, and the best part is the way that it cuts to this like fake out-of-world Deadpool dancing, doing the bye-bye-bye scene where he's like moving and stuff. I was screaming in the theater. The best part of that about this is I went to go see it for the first time with my girlfriend, and after we watched the movie, we were talking about it, and I was like, oh my god, the intro was so funny when they had Deadpool dancing, you know? I wonder who that was. And she goes, wait, that wasn't Ryan Reynolds? I'm like, no, I don't think that was Ryan Reynolds hitting those dance moves. But I like the way that it felt like so fake. Like, this obviously isn't Ryan Reynolds, and it's obviously not in the scene. But the way that they cut back and forth, the way that he was slapping them back and forth, the way that he stabs the bone in the guy's crotch and just like, I don't want to say strokes it, pause, but he kind of does. It was insane. It was balls to the wall, crazy. Like, that's how you start off a Deadpool movie. And again, do I think that this is the best part of the film? Low-key, but that's not a bad thing. It's just that it was so out of right field. It was just so phenomenal, and I feel like it's just one of these things that, honestly, Shawn Levy and Ryan Reynolds should be so proud of because it hit so hard. But listen, as much as I loved it, we have to move on because I'm going to be making, a 4-hour video by accident if I don't. So, moving on, we have the birthday party that has the side characters and Vanessa. Okay, so from there, we move on to the birthday party. I'm not going to be hitting every single little thing, but we see that Wade, it's his birthday again. He's meeting up with all the side characters that I feel like, in a way, not that they're shoehorned, but I wish that they got a little bit more time to breathe. Colossus says, like, one line to Deadpool, which I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then we get reintroduced to Vanessa. I don't want to say reintroduced, but this is kind of where we start off with our plot here. We get to see Deadpool basically talking to Vanessa for the first time and talking about how he kind of wants to matter. We kind of get that understanding, which we also get with like Happy and stuff, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But either way, we see that he wants Vanessa back. Then the TVA knocks on the door. And again, we saw that already in the trailer. It's nothing too crazy, but the thing is, it was a bit more extended where like he's kind of going on with like the pegging jokes and stuff. It's a little bit longer. They grab him and then they take him to the TVA. I wish that, honestly, and I'm going to take this time because as I'm going through these plot points, I kind of want to also discuss some of the things that I didn't really enjoy about the movie or I enjoyed about the film as a whole. Vanessa is what I want to talk about here. This whole film revolves around her, technically. Wade wants to matter. He wants to show Vanessa that he's worth her time and that he wants to be with her, that he cares about her so much and the other people. I feel like they just didn't push it far enough, though. I feel like with Vanessa, especially in the end, it's kind of like he's just like, oh, I did it for you. And then she just puts her hand on top of his. And I was like, I feel like that could have been developed a little bit more. Guys, again, sorry if there's cars going behind me. I don't think it should be too loud, though. But either way, it's kind of just the point of, I kind of wish they pushed that a little bit further. Even his friends, like, yeah, I get that he cares about these people. But I wish that we spent, like, 2 more minutes with them. And also, I wish that we saw him talk about it, like, 1 more time. Because he pulls out the photograph and he's like, these are the people that I care about. Which was very nice. Then Wolverine takes it out again, and he's also like, say hi to your friends for me, which was really nice during the sacrifice towards the end, which we'll get to, but I just feel like they should have just pushed it a little bit more with the depth. But let's just move on. Now we have the TVA intro, right? He's introduced to the TVA, and we meet Paradox for the first time. Paradox, just talking about him generally, I know that I'm kind of bouncing all over the place again, that's just how this is going to be. I think that Paradox is a fine villain. I love the actor's performance. I know that he was in Succession, but, he's kind of jumpy. He has, like, this frantic energy to him. He's, like, sassy, but he's also, like, kind of aggressive, or he can be passive-aggressive at times. He's pretty funny, right? But I just feel like his motivations don't really make too much sense. It's kind of like he just wants to get rid of Deadpool's timeline, kind of for no reason. But let's just talk about the plot here, because we'll just move on, because, again, I can't spend too much time on everybody. Basically, he says, hey, Deadpool, listen, we need you to, come to the MCU because we want to save you, but your universe is dying, and, we think that you could be important instead of just being mediocre. Okay, that's pretty much what I got from it. And he's like, nice, can I bring my friends? Then he's like, no, you can't. And you guys saw the movie probably, so you understand what goes on here. And he's kind of just saying, hey, I want to destroy your timeline for no reason. And that kind of just bothered me. Like, I get it. He's like, oh, I'm sick of waiting or whatever. But I feel like they could have given him a better reason or something like that. Then they tell him about, like, the alpha being or whatever it is. It's just a person that died in the universe, and it's Logan. Then he gets all mad, right? Which I think is pretty funny. There's obviously the gag about, Thor dying, which was so funny. He's like, why is Thor crying? Not Thor dying, Deadpool dying. And he's like, hey, why is Thor crying? That was so funny. The jokes in this are hysterical. He gets suited up and the suit up scene and the editing throughout this entire film is absolutely wonderful. But when he's in the suit up scene and the guy keeps grabbing like his crotch and he keeps touching his butt, then he just goes, hey, you're Taylor? Yeah, he's a predator. So funny. There's just so many great jokes throughout this film. We're going to talk about the jokes though kind of after I get done with this. But then, he grabs like the time pad and he's like, I'm out of here. I'm going to get Wolverine or whatever happens. You guys get the gist here, of course. So then we kind of go into our Wolverine search. This is like our little montage type of thing where we get some cameos or some surprising moments. We see Wolverine when he's super short, the comic accurate version. I thought that was pretty funny because especially when he turns his head, we got to actually see a normal Hugh Jackman Wolverine, but then it cuts to his body and he jumps off the stool when he's super short. I thought that was pretty funny. It was pretty good. It was pretty much just good enough. We see Patch, which I'm going to be honest with you, I was a bit disappointed because it's just Hugh Jackman with an eye patch. They totally could have put Daniel Radcliffe in there. It wouldn't have hurt the budget. He would have been in there for literally 5 seconds. It wouldn't have done that much. I think that would have been a lot cooler, and don't get me wrong, it was cool to see, I guess, Hugh Jackman in a white suit with an eye patch, but it didn't really do too much for me at the end of the day. We see 80s Wolverine, I guess, where he's like wearing the black suit and there's everything on fire. He kind of fights him, and he's like bantering with these people. It's pretty funny. We see Jesus Wolverine. I guess it's a reference to like some type of comic or something where there's all the red skulls and he's like being hung on the cross, pretty much like the X cross, and he's like, nope, I'm not seeing you. Then, of course, the one true cameo of this film, because the other characters that showed up are not cameos. They actually had some type of significance to the plot, so I don't think that would actually count. We have Henry Cavill, right? I think that it was pretty cool that we got to see him. I don't think it's like the most insane thing in the world. I did predict it though, by the way. But it was pretty interesting that he got his little moment. Deadpool says to him like, we're going to treat you a lot better than those people down the street. Of course, referring to DC, which I thought was great. I wonder if they had to get like legal permission to like say these types of things, especially because, they're competitors. But either way, that was really funny. He brings out the claws and just slams Deadpool into the portal. Then he meets the real Wolverine, who's like a disappointment. It's kind of this bar scene that I don't want to say is like boring or anything, but I just don't have that much to say about it. But he pretty much just says, hey, you're coming with me because you're good enough. Fine. They go back to the TVA, right? Drops him off with the yellow suit, and that's where we see it for the first time because he's like, oh, these jammies are nice. Drops him off. And from there, that's pretty much how they get to the Void because he's like, hey, I brought back a Wolverine. And then he's like, dude, you can't do that. That's what Mr. Paradox says. And it's pretty funny, but at the same time, I feel like this first, act in a way is a bit shaky. And I don't mean that in a horrible way because I like the intro, but I'm talking about after the intro because we have like that sacred timeline scene where he's meeting with Happy, which I'll talk about in a little bit when I get to like the cameos. I did like it, but at the same time, I felt like it was a bit, I don't want to say rushed, but it was kind of like, hey, we're jumping here, then we're jumping there, we're going there. Also, Deadpool makes jokes to Mr. Paradox about like exposition, but then they proceed to just give a lot of exposition, and I'm kind of just like, so you're joking about exposition. He's like, oh, this is a lot of exposition for this movie, but then it feels like they just keep doing exposition, so I'm kind of just like, is it ironic if you're actually doing it in the film? Whatever. He runs up to the camera, right? He's like, suck it, Fox, I'm going to Disneyland. That was pretty funny. And yeah, let's just move on to the next part here. So after the Wolverine search, we have the Void sequence, the first Void sequence. That's where they go there. Deadpool and Wolverine have an insane fight. He's like, get out your special sock, nerds. This is the fight you've all been waiting for. Very funny. I mean, it's just Deadpool stuff, naturally. I really enjoy this humor. Some people act like it's Reddit humor. No, it's not. It's just very funny. It's very clever with some of these jokes. The Deadpool and Wolverine fight, it's just absolutely awesome. I love that when he stabs Deadpool, he like picks him up in the air and he's like, dude, just like leave me alone, basically. And they're just like sitting there. The fight's sick. Of course, in the trailer, we saw that edit where Deadpool flips up the mags and he's slamming the mags into the guns. He like reloads it and then he starts shooting Wolverine. Wolverine's like running over to him. It looks really sick. I'm happy that we got one true in the open Wolverine Deadpool fight. And we get another one, but for starters, that was really great. Then all of a sudden, someone says, hey, they're coming, and that someone does end up being pretty important. But the, Mad Max people come on over. Then we see Chris Evans as the Human Torch. I like the gag that he was, apparently going to be Captain America. The second I saw him, I was like, oh, that's Johnny Storm. But obviously, they were trying to play it like, look, guys, it's Captain America, because especially Deadpool loves Cap. I feel like everyone loves Cap. Ant-Man loves Cap. Everyone loves him. But it's just one of these things where, they played it off pretty well. I'm actually surprised that not Ryan Reynolds, Chris Evans was willing to come back, even just for something small like this. But I don't think he's a cameo because he's in the movie for a couple minutes. They talk about him for like most of the movie. It's like a running gag. So I feel like overall, he's not really a cameo. He's more of a reoccurring character. You know what I mean? He does have some type of plot significance. So, Johnny Storm goes up in the air. Pyro's like, come on, get down from here. He like slams. He should have got killed, by the way. He like hits his neck like 3 times, which was pretty crazy to me. But whatever, slams on the floor. Then Sabretooth jumps down and he's like, hey, I'm here. Deadpool's like, time out. And then he's saying a bunch of funny stuff to Wolverine. And then Wolverine just goes, shut the F up. And then he just goes, oh, which is pretty funny. They run at each other. He decapitates Sabretooth, which was sick. And he's just sitting there like, and then Deadpool's like, what's going on, buddy? What's going on? And then his head just falls off. Then he does the Furiosa bit, which had me dying. I was literally crying. I'm like, how is this in a Disney movie right now? Disney Marvel movie? How are they talking about Mad Max? Like, how do they have the rights to this stuff? I guess I had to get, legal clearance or whatever, but it was hysterical. They get captured. Okay. Then we get to finally meet Cassandra Nova, which we're going to talk about right now. We pull up to the fort. Cassandra Nova is like, hey, I'm not Charles or whatever. Pulls up, and then they're like, oh my God, you're whatever. And then basically Deadpool's like talking, he's yapping, and Wolverine's like, dude, stop talking for 3 seconds. Johnny's there. She's like, I've been trying to get this guy for a while. Okay, that's fine. But then all of a sudden Deadpool's like, listen, Johnny was just talking a lot of shit about you. And she's like, oh, really? He's like, what are you talking about? And Chris Evans sells this so well. It's so funny. He's like, I have never said any of that in my entire life. He's like, no, he said, and then he just goes off on like this vulgar rant. And he's like, that's what he just said about you. She rips his skin clean off of his body. And he falls down into like this pile of organs and bones. And then Wolverine just goes, oh my God, you just got this guy killed. What are you doing? And that was so funny. I swear, Hugh Jackman's hysterical in this film. From there, they kind of have this little escape scene. She kind of, beats down on Wolverine. Wolverine stabs her. She's like, oh, that's cute. It's time for Goliath to eat. Then they jump onto like this robot foot when it's time to escape, which I thought was a pretty cheap way of them escaping this fort, honestly. And they rocket boost away up until the top of this like little mountain thing. Once they get to the top of this mountain, right, they see this little diner. They walk over to the diner, and then they have a little convo about what's been going on with Wolverine, what's been going on with Deadpool. And I'm going to get into their characters in a little bit. I'm going to get into that later on. But I just wanted to go over the plot here. Wolverine's like, hey, have you ever gotten checked for ADHD, which was so funny. He starts drinking rubbing alcohol, and he's like, oh, yeah, fine, just kill your liver. That's what Deadpool says. Really funny. Man, again, the jokes were just hitting in this so hard. Talks about his toupee. He's like, yeah, I wear this toupee around a lot. Then Wolverine's like, dude, everybody knows you're wearing a toupee. Because he's like, oh, no, nobody knows. Really funny stuff. From there, they're kind of just walking around. He's like, yeah, you have this daughter named X-23, and that's what happened to Logan. Logan got killed. Or, he doesn't really say killed. He says something a lot more vulgar about a tree, but I digress. Then all of a sudden, we see Dogpool. The Lady in Red, the song starts playing. The needle drops are so good in this movie. Then he's just getting really excited with his dog. He's like, you're the cutest thing I've ever seen. And the funny thing is, it's just the ugliest dog you've ever seen, realistically. But that's the thing about Deadpool, because honestly, he's just so ugly, and so is this dog. But yeah, Nice Pool comes along. All of a sudden, he's like, hey, sorry guys, that was just my dog. And he's like, who the hell is this guy? Dogpool just starts licking Deadpool's lips, and he has like this blank expression while he's just licking his lips. It's like absolutely disgusting, but he clearly doesn't care because he's just so frustrated with Nice Pool. He's like, sorry guys, that's my dog. Hey, like, who are you? Oh, you're another Deadpool? Oh, nice. Then he's like, why? Deadpool asks Nice Pool, hey, why don't you wear your mask? And he's like, you guys see me, right? And I think that was pretty funny because I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Ryan Reynolds won one of those magazine things for like sexiest man alive or whatever. I might be wrong, but either way, obviously handsome guy. So I thought that was really funny because his face obviously isn't deformed where Deadpool's, Wade Wilson's, I should say, is. Just a great little gag. They're like, hey, let's go check out the car. Then Deadpool starts dropping like knowledge on the car. He's like, this isn't a good car, whatever, the Honda Odyssey. Runs into the corn away with Dogpool, and he's like, oh, the corn's too dense to try to get away. And then they're on their way. Again, I know I'm not getting too much into detail about every single thing, but I'd be sitting here for like 5 hours if I did. But then they're on their way with the car, and then they have a really great convo. Deadpool's talking to him about like, dude, why'd your friends make you dress up like the Los Angeles Rams? And that's a reoccurring thing. He keeps talking about the suit. He's like, dude, you've got this suit on. You're wearing the yellow suit for the first time in 20 years. The jokes in this movie, again, obviously I can't mention every single one because they're so rapid. They're at such a rapid pace. But they're just so hit after hit after hit after hit, with some misses, don't get me wrong. But either way, I just think that they're phenomenal. But we're going to talk about them generally a little bit later on. But then they get to a certain point where Wolverine's like, dude, you just need to shut up. Wolverine absolutely goes off on him, and it's so funny. Then Deadpool just hits him with a, listen, I am going to fight you now, which is when we get into our car sequence. He slams his head onto the front monitor, and it starts playing The Greatest Showman for literally half a second. I wish it played it for a little bit longer. Would have been so much more interesting. Could have been really funny if it played throughout the whole fight. But either way, they play like just some country song that I've heard before. I forgot the name of the song. And they're going at it. And the camera work is so slick when they're just destroying each other in this car. So much blood, so many cool moves. Deadpool's wrapping the seatbelt around his neck, ties him up, and clearly they're going throughout the entire night. And it finishes off with the coexist bumper sticker, which I thought was hysterical. The next time that we saw Deadpool and Wolverine, I was actually in tears. We see over the top of the car, Wolverine's just laying there, but Deadpool is wrapped up like a mummy in the seatbelts, which I'm assuming is how the fight ended, and they just got so tired that they just stopped, and he was literally just wrapped up like a mummy, like he was just mummified. I don't know why I'm repeating myself, but the car takes off. Someone got in the car and takes off. And let's move on to that, because now we are at the cameo team, which is what I'm going to call them. We get to this base. Deadpool wakes up and he goes, Thor? Which is so funny because he keeps mentioning Thor whenever he wakes up. He's like, God of Thunder, when he was in the cage with Johnny and Wolverine. It's a reoccurring joke. I really like the gags that kept going. Also, the baby knife joke I thought was pretty funny. In the car scene, he takes it out. Baby knife right in his Wolverine's thigh. Was pretty funny. From there, Wolverine wakes up. No, not Wolverine wakes up. Deadpool wakes up. He sees Wolverine. All of a sudden, he hears someone coming. Sticks out his katana. And who's there to take him down? Jennifer Gardner as Elektra. Now listen, this was pretty much the biggest lock of a cameo because months and months and months ago, there was a leak that she like legitimately signed on. It wasn't even like something that was rumored. It was like her name was actually in the credits, so it was basically confirmed she was going to be in this movie. That wasn't too crazy, so she came out and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Talking about Elektra, because I'm going to just try to go through these people as a the order that they came out in. Talking about Elektra, to be completely honest with you, she doesn't have that much to do here, but I'm happy that she's here. Like, I think that she's like the worst cameo, but it doesn't mean that she's bad in any way. The only really funny thing that they do with her is when they mention Daredevil and they're talking about how he died and she's like, hey, don't mention it, because that was her ex-husband, of course, Ben Affleck, which I thought was a pretty funny little gag. I think her suit looks pretty good. Don't get me wrong, I've never seen the Elektra movie. And again, she just doesn't really do that much. Even in the fight, which we're going to get to, she's just there, kind of, killing some people. She doesn't have too many lines. But again, as like a filler character, just to add to the team, one more cameo, one more character that sort of lost their universe, I think it was a nice addition. Then we have somebody that, even though I said they're probably going to be in the movie, I was getting a little bit shaky as we were getting closer to it. Blade walks out. And I was like, there is no way they got Wesley Snipes to do this movie because of the fact that Ryan Reynolds and Wesley Snipes had troubles. I think that Ryan Reynolds and him worked on a movie together, and they just butted heads. They did not get along. They do make a joke about it in this film, and some of the stuff that he says is so funny. He's like, I'm retired, and then he says something that sounds like retired, and he's like, hey, I'm not trying to get canceled here. That's what Deadpool says. Really funny gag. I loved some of the kills that he had. He was using different gadgets, like different types of knives to just destroy some people. It was really cool. I liked his design. Wasn't the most incredible suit I've ever seen, but it was simple. It was clean. Really good to have him back. Again, I haven't seen the Blade movies, I'm going to be honest with you, but I really do appreciate and respect Wesley Snipes. He was like one of the first superheroes of like the modern age, like 25 years ago. So, of course, it was really cool to see him show up. But then we have probably my favorite cameo, one that I've been vouching for since, I don't know, a couple months ago at least. Channing Tatum as Gambit. You see the card spin out. The second that you see that card turn right around the corner, I was like, no way, it's going to be Gambit. And then he walks out, right? In the ugliest suit I've ever seen, But it was so funny for that exact reason. Because keep in mind, this movie never actually got made. So the thing is, I feel like it's funny that they're playing on, hey, let's just give him a stupid suit because it's not like he ever actually got to play the character. And I feel like it just adds to that whole lost, forgotten universe type of thing. Deadpool says one of the funniest jokes in the movie, in my opinion. There's so many subtly funny jokes where he goes, you look like Hawkeye if he was actually a superhero. So funny. And then he starts talking. When he starts talking, I was in tears over this because it feels like Channing Tatum isn't even playing Gambit. He's not even playing a character for this first scene. He's just doing a bit, honestly. He's just kind of like riffing this New Orleans accent that sounds like absolute gibberish. And when I first watched it, I was like, wait, what did he say? And then Deadpool goes, dude, what the hell are you talking about? Which was so funny because I thought I was supposed to understand what he was saying. Then again, he's like, dude, who the hell is your dialect coach? Then he makes a joke about like, dude, you sound just like the Minions, which was hysterical. Again, I don't know how they got legal clearance for these jokes because obviously the Minions aren't owned by Disney. But it was just such a great gag. I thought that he was the standout cameo for me when they're in the car because, you know, from there they move on. But, you know, before I get to the car, actually, let me talk about this. When they're all together, they're basically just saying, hey, you know, we didn't get to save our universes. We didn't get to fight for it. But maybe we can go take down Cassandra Nova. We can get another chance to, like, defend stuff. And then Channing Tatum's like, or defend the universe that we never had, which was really funny because I feel like most general audiences will understand that joke realistically. But, you know, he never actually got his movie, whereas these other two characters actually did. Daphne Keane walks out. Of course, she was teased in the trailers. She gets her little moment. And I don't feel like they went as in-depth as they should have with her character. I mean, that was a huge thing that happened. Her dad basically died, and now she's seeing him right in front of her. And I know that it's not the same person, but it's like, that's still Wolverine. I wish that they got to connect a little bit more. They have a small moment near the campfire. I don't know why I said that in like a Gambit accent, but they have this small moment by the campfire talking about how like he was never the right guy or whatever. But I think that was very important. But again, I'm going to be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine's characters once I'm done talking about the story, so we will get there at some point. But listen, then they get into the fight sequence. We're pulling up in this car. Gambit's like, blah, 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 blah. And then Deadpool goes, I think what Gambit's trying to say is, and that was so funny because this gag is just so hysterical. What's it called? Blade gets his bazooka. He stands up in the car and he's like, there's never going to be another Blade. I'm going to be the only Blade. Deadpool just looks at the camera, and I thought that was really funny for two reasons. First of all, the fact that they're making another Blade movie, and second of all, the fact that, of course, this movie's been delayed to death, so I feel like it's kind of like a double meaning. I don't really know what they were going for exactly, but either way, it was just so funny. The whole point, though, of this scene that I really did like is that these characters are kind of getting redemption. The fact that Channing Tatum's getting to play this character again, that's the biggest thing for me, man, because he's been so passionate about this character. I feel like he's talked about it in interviews so many times that it really does make me happy that he got his time to shine here. They pull up, and I'm going to be honest with you. The scene's really cool. They're playing Jay-Z. They kind of do this little drift thing, right? They blast through the doors. But then it gets a little bit stupid because I feel like they could have just shot at them. Like, all these soldiers, right, are just aiming at the car. And no one's shooting. They're kind of just letting them all walk out of the car. And Wolverine was like, you know what, I'm not coming. You guys have fun tomorrow. But then once they actually pull up, they do their, like, walk out in slow motion, which was pretty sick. Again, even though I'll give them a pass that they didn't all just, like, annihilate them. Even Cassandra Nova, she could have just instantly killed all of them, but instead she, like, walks inside. Those are the types of things that do kind of bother me just from like a storytelling standpoint. But it's fine, I get it. Maybe they just wanted to see what was going on. Then Wolverine pops to the trunk and he steps out as like the final needle drop moment. Pretty cool. Our fight sequence, man. Oh my god. This camera does not stop moving. I love that everyone got kind of like their moment to shine. The only person that I feel like didn't get their moment to shine, again, is Elektra. We see her like killing a couple people, but I feel like she doesn't get that one really sick moment. Gambit, like I said, he's been doing a bit, Channing Tatum, but now it feels like he's actually playing the character, and he's like throwing the cards, he's dealing the cards. We see the deck like get stretched out, throws them on a bunch of guys, and he's like, boom, and they all just explode. Takes out his staff, he's stabbing guys. I'm not super familiar with like comics and stuff, but I do understand Gambit's powers on a basic level, so I really enjoyed seeing him just getting to absolutely kick ass in this. It was sick. Blade whips out his pistol, absolutely destroys a guy. Super sick, man. He gets like a couple one-liners, gets to slash a couple of people. He just destroys Toad. X-23 is going off, man. She's running around, stabbing people in the neck. She gets Juggernaut because they're trying to get the helmet. Of course, they did already talk about trying to get Magneto's helmet, which was really funny. And then Deadpool just goes, oh, of course he's dead. Disney's just trying to get cheap on us, which was really funny. And then he's like, wait, we could get Magneto's helmet. And then he's like, she melted it. And then he just goes, fuck. And I'm not going to say it. I'll keep it PG-13 on here. But that reoccurring thing of characters keep saying the F word like frantically was so funny. It reminds me of Ted when they do like the Superman reveal. If you guys have ever seen that movie. And Mark Wahlberg just says the same thing in that same energy. Was a pretty funny callback, I believe, to that. I might be wrong though. But either way, it's just the point that they're trying to get Juggernaut's helmet to put on Cassandra Nova so that they could stop her because they were just so amazed that she escaped. Then once they actually get there, it just turns into one of these things where, Deadpool gets annihilated. Wolverine's like being tortured practically. He gets his mind messed with and she's like, I can quiet the voices. But then he's like, nope, I got you. Basically, Deadpool comes over, throws the helmet on her. They're talking about Charles. He's like, listen, I love Charles. He wouldn't let me kill you because Pyro comes out of nowhere. Just to go on a little slight tangent here, I feel like the Pyro storyline that they tried to do, this little arc, I guess did help progress the story, but it was a little bit dumb. It felt a little bit out of like left field, and it was just one of these things where I was like, do we really need this? Like, I don't know. It was kind of stupid. He's like calling Paradox. He's like, I could take down Nova or whatever. It just kind of leads to nowhere, and I guess it does lead somewhere, but like, I don't love the way that it, led off or whatever, but I'll try to speed things up here a little bit. She's like, listen, I'm going to get you to your world, whatever. There's a time ripper. She, spins up the portal. She's like, I had a strange come through here. They sprint and they jump through the portal. I love the way that all these characters basically look up for the last time, like Gambit and Elektra and Blade, and they're like, you know what? Even though we're going to go out fighting, at least they get to go to their home world. I thought that was super nice. That was such a sweet moment. And of course, they get to return to their home world. Once they get back to like the home world, like Deadpool and Wolverine, they're in like that same street that they've been on where like Deadpool's apartment is or whatever. Right next to that subway station, they see Paradox and they're like, nope, you're not doing this. Sorry, we're stopping this time ripper. But Cassandra Nova already found out where they are. So that portal opens, the classic Doctor Strange portal, and she walks out and she has her fingers in Pyro's head. She kills him, which honestly, the CGI looked really bad for that kill. I don't know if it was just me, but the way that his neck like snapped was just kind of awkward. And then Deadpool's kind of just like, hey, no, don't even worry about it. We're going to stop the time ripper. But then she shows her true motivations and she's like, no, we're not stopping this. I am going to use it. So she sends them flying. She's like, let mommy and daddy talk. She sends them flying back, and this is where we really kick things off with this banger. I don't want to say third act because the third act pretty much already started, but that final kind of general sequence. They get sent off, and now we could really dig into the good stuff here. I guess she goes down to the time ripper. She's kind of suiting up with it, all that. Then they both get up, right? Deadpool and Wolverine. They're like, we have to get to the subway station. They see what's it called? Dogpool running down. He's like, oh my god, Dogpool, you're back. He runs through the portal. Then Nicepool comes walking around. He's like, hey, sorry guys. Deadpool's like, fuck. He's like, he's really pissed. He's like, why are you here all the time? He sees him again. Then he's like, I can break the fourth wall. He looks over to the side and he just goes, the proposal. And then he just goes, what the hell was that? Which was so hysterical. And then Wolverine, they're talking back and forth. They're like, listen, we got to figure this out. We got to go down there. But then they look and they point and they say, oh my god, what is that? And the Deadpool corpse, which were mentioned earlier in the film, pull up. I'm going to be completely honest with you. The Deadpool corpse, I'm kind of mixed on for multiple reasons. The sequence when they walk through the portal was shot pretty poorly. It looks very corny, and there was just this like generic score, like rap type of song playing over it, and it just felt so awkward and out of place. Some of the Deadpool characters too looked exactly the same, and that was kind of just like filler to me, and I was like, okay, like this is cool, I guess, but it just feels a little bit out of place and corny. Like, I'm just gonna be real. On top of that, none of them even take their masks off. I thought that Blake Lively was going to be Ladypool, which apparently she was because she voiced Ladypool, but we don't get to see her take her mask off. So that made it feel a little bit cheaper, if I'm going to be honest with you. It took it away from me a little bit. Also, Matthew McConaughey voiced Cowboy Deadpool, which was pretty cool and you could tell, but why not just have him dress up for like one day? Just pay him some money, show face, would have been a bit cooler. But either way, they're like, oh God, we have to figure something out right now because, things are going down. They start like fighting, they go behind the car, and they're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Before they start fighting, they're like, wait, hold on. Deadpool's like, Deadpool Prime here, which is so funny. He always acts like he's like the best Deadpool, which of course he is. And then he's like, listen, let's just chill out for a minute. We want to get down there. Deadpool groups are like, nope, you're going to have to get through us. They start shooting. And Deadpool grabs Nicepool and is using him as a shield. And they're running over to the car, throws down his body. They're like taking cover, basically. This is another one of these scenarios where it's like, why don't they keep shooting at them, though? It's like they just pause just because the plot needs the enemies to pause. Like in The Void, when they pulled up in the van and they're like, all the enemies are aiming at them and they're not shooting. Feels like another one of those scenarios where it's just a convenient stoppage. And it's like, okay, that's fine, though. I'll just let it happen. The thing is, though, all of a sudden, Nicepool is like, am I going to be okay? And blood's coming out of his mouth. And he's like, yeah, you'll be fine. How long does it take you to regenerate? And then he just goes, regenerate, which was one of the funniest moments in the entire movie. Deadpool and Wolverine look at each other and he's like, what? And from there he's like, wait, I'm actually laughing talking about this. I can't even talk about it. He looks over at the donut cart and he goes, donut carts? Those are like hospitals or something like that. We have some medical supplies over there. And then Wolverine's like, he's going to die. Like, you're going to get him killed. They start walking. Deadpool picks up Nicepool, starts running over to the donut cart on the other side of the street, using him as a barricade. He's getting absolutely annihilated. And then he just stops walking and he's like, I have to catch my breath while he's holding Nicepool. And Nicepool's just getting like shot. He's like, oh, there's blood coming out of his mouth. And he's like, I'm going to be okay, right? And Deadpool's like, listen, buddy, you just have to believe. I don't remember what he said. He's like, say it with me. You're going to be okay. He's like, I'm going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And then his head explodes. He just gets absolutely murdered. It was so funny. I was absolutely dying. There's just like blood that goes all over his face. Then he runs over to the donut cart, throws it down. Wolverine picks up Dogpool, and then you realize they don't want to shoot Dogpool. They like respect Dogpool. Picks him up and he just casually walks over. Such a funny gag. Like, I like how this whole sequence, even though it is very vital to the plot, felt like this bit that they were trying to do. Like, they actually set it up. It had a payoff. It was very funny. Like, it wasn't just like one joke. It was multiple jokes that were set up properly. I think that was so well done and just well developed in that category. But then they're over there, and we find out Deadpool's true intentions. He's like, he just got killed, and then Wolverine says something about like, yeah, for murder, because you just murdered him. And it's so funny. Hugh Jackman's performance and the way that he delivers some of these lines absolutely killed me. It made this just so much better. Then again, we find out his even more true intentions, because of course he wanted Dogpool, and he goes, what's going to happen with these 2 double gold-plated Desert Eagle pistols? Because he wanted the pistols. He saw them already. And also, Nicepool mentioned earlier in the film, he goes, yeah, you want these? Yeah, over my dead body. Now we have his dead body. But that was so funny that he finally got them. Then he's like, listen, you want to fight? And Wolverine's like, I get to kill 100 of you? Of course. And then they walk out to Madonna. That slow walk, and they're like, let's go. Wolverine has his sleeves ripped off. It looks so sick. And also, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a sucker for that song. It's such a guilty pleasure song, and I'm not talking about just because of this movie. Even before this movie, I loved it. It's just such an ironically beautiful song. All of a sudden, Wolverine picks up his helmet and flips it over, and his cowl is finally on. Then he just goes, wait a minute, why don't you use that for the whole movie? Is it only for special moments or something along those lines? That was so great. It looked so sick. On my first watch, I didn't like it that much. I thought the CGI looked a little bit off. But on my second watch, I was like, you know what? It looks super cool. We have our one shot, which at first, again, on my first watch, I did not appreciate. But on my second watch, after actually, knowing it's going to be there, this one shot scene is phenomenal. The amount of blood, the amount of amazing choreography going all the way down the street. They're going into the bus. It's incredibly shot. Like, this is another one of these shots where I'm like, wow, Sean Levy actually cooked with this film. It was wonderfully done. But then they finally get to the end, they jump out of the back of the bus, Wolverine's going crazy, Deadpool slams on the floor and gets up and he's like, oh my god, I didn't stick the landing. That's all anybody's ever gonna remember. That was absolutely hysterical. I just love all these little gags. A lot of Deadpool's jokes, a lot of them are very niche, I'm gonna be honest with you, but a lot of them are very good and they're very well developed, and I really enjoyed the fact that they were so clever and they were tied into whatever was going on. They're not all just super edgy or all just super dark. Like, some of them are actually just funny. Then Peter shows up and they're like, oh my god, we love Peter, which I thought was like, okay, I don't know, it was kind of weird, I guess. Then they kind of just like run down into the subway. I kind of want to just finish up with the plot here so I can talk about some other things. They run into the subway and they're like, okay, Paradox, you're here, you know, screw you, whatever, but how do we stop this thing from happening? How do we stop this Time Ripper from destroying this reality? He says it's going to take someone's sacrifice. You know, he goes over all the details about how there's energy. Oh, but we're going to regenerate. Then he says, no, this is like antimatter stuff we're dealing with. You'll be atomized. So then they both walk down there, right? Wolverine still has his cowl on, and he's just like, listen, I need to do this. You have something to live for. You have your friends to go back to. Deadpool, of course, is like, you know, I really appreciate that you're doing this pretty much. He's like, it's been really fun. You know, this is the team up I always wanted. He's like, farewell. Wolverine just goes, say hi to your friends for me. Opens the door. Then Deadpool runs out to him, slams his head with a fire extinguisher, throws him out, locks the door, and says, haha. Wolverine's like, why'd you do that? And then he's like, it smells like noble sacrifice or something like that, which was really great. I like the fact that he wants to sacrifice himself because he wants to save the world. He wants to matter in his head. He wants to be the one to put his life on the line, even though Wolverine has nothing to live for at this point. I don't mean to sound dark, but that's the truth, because he's the one that, you know, kind of ruined his world. He made the X-Men look bad, which I'm going to get into. We're going to talk about these characters. Again, that's why I'm trying to just get through this plot. He's trying to get, you know, these two pillars to connect, basically. And this ending was very reminiscent of Guardians of the Galaxy 1, where they're all holding the Infinity Stones, which was, you know, okay. I don't know if it was meant to be a callback, but regardless, Madonna starts playing. It's epic. The stakes are getting raised. It's coming to a crescendo. And then you start to realize, wait, is he actually going to fail? And I was like, wait, he's actually going to lose, because it looked like from the way that it was edited, Wolverine was really struggling to try to get in the door. Like, the glass was breaking on the door, the metal was denting, but it didn't look like he was going to get through. And the percentage bar on, like, the thing that they were showing where, like, the universe is going to end was going down rapidly. And I was like, with the way it's being edited, there is no way that he's actually going to make it. And I was like, oh my god, he's actually going to fail. And maybe that this will have implications on the MCU or something. I don't know. But then, with just a second left, you see Wolverine's hand reach out, grab Deadpool's hand. Then he grabs the other pillar, and they're connected to each other in one uniform line. And Wolverine's shirt rips off and explodes off. And you see Hugh Jackman's ripped, shredded, oily, body. And it looks, honestly, so sick. With the cowl and the pants. And one of my favorite moments, before I talk about this scene, one of my favorite moments is when, because I think that the shirt ripping off would have been stupid if not for the shot where it shows just his abs, and Deadpool leans over and he like looks at his abs and he's like, whoa. It was so funny when I was in the theater watching that, because he's like, god damn, this guy has a crazy body. So perfectly executed. The camera work in this scene in particular was so great. It starts spinning around them. It's like this epic moment of strength and willpower. This is where the Madonna just kicks back in. They're going crazy. And they basically just save the world. You know, they die, because I want to just speed through this a little bit here. Then they come back and they're like, actually, we're back. We survived. You said that one person would die, but we're a Deadpool and a Wolverine. We're two, regenerating people. Paradox gets taken away. They joke around about, you're going to play this role till you're 90. That's what Deadpool says again, because they're like, we might need you again in the future, the TVA says. And I thought that was pretty funny as well. Then the movie pretty much ends with, them just all together. This is where he meets up with Vanessa, and he's like, I did this for you. Then she just, puts his hand on him, which, again, is kind of another thing that I just didn't really love, to be completely honest with you. But either way, I thought that this movie ended on a nice little note. Even though this isn't a part of the movie, The one part of this movie that actually almost made me cry was in the end credits when they started playing the X-Men montage of how they had all this behind-the-scenes stuff, because at the end of the day, I know this universe has been hit or miss, but I really did love the Fox X-Men universe, and it almost put a tear to my eye watching that. Also, that followed with the post-credit scene showing Johnny Storm actually saying the stuff that he said he didn't say. That was a pretty funny little gag. I would have liked to see something that maybe would tease something in the future, but if they don't have anything planned, listen, Marvel, just don't rush. I have no problem with that. And overall, I mean, that's just the plot, guys. I definitely want to dive into, though, the characters. I know that this is a very long video, but talking about the characters here, right? I feel like this movie, of course, was Deadpool and Wolverine, but there was concern about whether it would be too much Deadpool or too much Wolverine. I feel like on both characters' ends, when it comes to Deadpool and Wolverine, things were not properly developed. And I think that they were developed enough, but they could have gone way further on both ends. On the Deadpool side of things, like I said, I wish they dove into the Vanessa storyline more. I wish that they had like one more conversation or something like that. Or we could see why suddenly in the third movie, Wade is like, I want to matter. Because I feel like it just came completely out of left field in a way, and it didn't really make too much sense. And like, it's one of these things where it's like 6 years later, so it's like, man, why did you have to do all this for Vanessa just for her to just put her hand over your hand? That wasn't really that satisfying, and even with his friends, he cares about them, but I wish he talked about them a little bit more during the course of the film. On the Wolverine side, which I didn't really touch on my first watch, I didn't appreciate the Wolverine side of things as much as I did on my second watch. Hugh Jackman was absolutely great throughout this entire movie. He was funny, he had great serious times, but the one thing that I kept forgetting is that this isn't Logan that we're watching. This is another Wolverine. So I'm like, I feel like his performance is a little bit off. But it's not that it's off, it's that he's playing another character. He's playing Wolverine, but he's playing another Wolverine. This isn't the same one that we've known and loved for so long. So I think that it makes a lot of sense. I just wish that we dove a little bit more into his backstory. Like, I get it. He kind of let the X-Men down because he was at the bar, and then they all got killed because the humans were going hunting. This is where the story gets a bit messy for me. And diving into some more of my cons here, I wish that there was some way that we could have combined Paradox and Cassandra Nova into one character. I don't mean that literally. I just mean that, like, it feels like each of them are like half of a story, and they could have been, in a way, combined into just one really solid villain that was more focused and that was more, honed in on, because we're spending some time with Paradox, we're spending some time with Cassandra Nova. I wish that they chose one or the other or something along those lines. But either way, I think that they were both good enough. That's the thing. And I think the fun elements, the crazy elements, the jaw-dropping elements were enough to raise this movie to be great, because I feel like the storyline was good enough. Some of the emotions were good enough. I don't think they were insane. I really like that ending scene, though, where they're holding each other. They're about to sacrifice themselves, and they look at each other. There's, this flashback sequence. I feel like those things were good enough. But the jaw-dropping scenes, the side characters, the action, those are the things that really raise the bar on this for me. Because I feel like I'm the type of person that really loves storytelling, right? I'm a very storytelling-enticed person, where if a movie is very flashy, but the story isn't good, I'm really not going to like it. And it feels like, to an extent, that's what this movie's almost teetering on. A lot of this stuff with, the timelines isn't really explained that well, and I'm a diehard Marvel fan, so I've watched all of Loki. I've watched this and that. But still, it just feels a bit all over the place when it comes to motivations and those types of things. But this is a movie where I'm able to look it over because, again, it feels like it's good enough. If the story was any worse, I think my rating would definitely go down. Even slightly worse, things were a little bit more messy. Honestly, it would have hurt my thoughts on this film. But let's just move on to something else. The CGI. I think that the CGI I had a problem with a little bit more in my first watch, but there's still some really rough scenes. Pyro's neck snap looked pretty bad. Some of Hugh Jackman's cowl stuff honestly looked kind of rough. And there was a lot of scenes where the background and stuff honestly just looked pretty bad. That final scene with the Deadpool corpse, I feel like this entire block just looked so fake. I don't know why they couldn't have just built, a set. Some of the side streets just looked really bad. But I understand, you only have a limited amount of time, resources, budget, whatever. But you're still Marvel Studios, and this is a $250 million film. You should be able to polish up your CGI. Most of the character movements looked really great. A lot of the CGI looked awesome. Some of it just kind of threw me off. the last thing is going to be, the last two things that I'm going to put together, because I was speaking about like the more fun elements, the more Deadpool elements, is going to be the action and the jokes. A lot of these jokes, I'm going to be honest, I'm surprised that they actually made the cut for this movie, because I feel like 75% of what Deadpool says, general audiences are not going to understand. General audiences don't know that Gambit was supposed to get his own movie, but he never did. 75% of audiences don't know that Fox was acquired by Disney, and now, you know, they could make jokes about Disney, and then they could make jokes about this meta thing and this meta thing. Maybe I'm just being a little bit too much of like a hard ass, but I feel like this movie, and don't get me wrong, as a diehard Marvel fan, I understood 90% of the jokes, and I thought that they were awesome. But in a way, it made for an awkward theater experience, because I saw this movie in IMAX with a ton of people, and there were some really funny niche jokes that I was laughing at, but I was like one of 3 people in the entire IMAX theater actually laughing at them, because other people just didn't get it. The more general funny jokes, yeah, people understood, like, why is Thor crying? Okay, everyone's going to get that because it's obviously just a very simple thing to understand. But a lot of these niche jokes, which is most of the movie, a lot of people didn't really understand. And again, I'm not holding that against the movie. I'm just saying that I'm surprised that's the route that they went. And I'm happy that they did, because it was great. Like, they went really hard with these jokes. They really pushed it with some of the stuff they were making fun of. Especially, like, listen, I get making jokes about Disney, right? But making jokes about the MCU and saying how the multiverse is like miss after miss after miss, which is what they said. And then Nicepool just goes, I thought they've been pretty steady since Endgame. That was like a serious deep cut, like deep rooted joke about the MCU. Like, that's serious self-awareness. And I guess I respect that they're able to be like, you know, making jokes about themselves. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but I mean, I'm just surprised that they did it. Again, I thought it was great. I'm not like dissing the jokes. I'm not saying they should have been more simple, because I really loved them. I'm just saying that I'm surprised that they went that far with the jokes. The last thing is the action. I don't have too much to say about it. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the best parts of this movie. I'm not really an action person. I know that sounds kind of stupid. Like, all action to me is pretty good, right? Like, if it just looks decent, I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. But when action really stands out, it definitely blows me away. Like, I'm like, oh my God, the way that this is shot, the way that, you know, you're seeing this, the way that the music ties into it, the way that our characters are moving and they're flying around and they're working together with their chemistry, I think it makes for awesome action sequences. And that's what this film does. The intro sequence is sick because of the music and the creativity behind having Logan's body. The car scene is interesting because it's literally in a car, and that makes for, you know, creative actions that they could do with it. Of course, using the seats, using the radio, using the seat belts. It's sick because it's a very contained space, and these are 2 regenerating characters that, of course, are just absolutely destroying each other. Then you have something like the last scene where you're using the camera to your advantage, and you're taking this one long shot of everything. And yeah, just to wrap up my thoughts on this film, right? Because I know this has been a very long video. I'm recording for 57 minutes straight, pretty much without stopping for a break here. I just, at the end of the day, really enjoyed this movie. Like, I have my complaints that I went over in this. They really could have pushed the emotions more. They could have maybe improved some of the CGI. The story feels like it's slightly duct taped together, honestly. But it's such a great time. It's so much fun. And usually I hate when people call movies just fun, because usually when someone calls a movie fun, that means that the story sucks and there's just characters punching each other. But that's not what this is. It's fun in a creative way. It's fun in an interesting way, because the characters in here are all just so interesting. And even if the story doesn't work perfectly, like I said, it's a good enough foundation for them to build on with the comedy, for them to build on with the action. And I think that Deadpool and Wolverine is a great movie. Guys, that's going to wrap up my spoiler discussion. I'm going to be honest with you. I probably missed talking about so much stuff, but I can't believe that I just wrapped up the entire movie in one video. This is one of the most insanely long videos that I've ever made. So, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I want to hear your thoughts down below. I mean, let's talk about this movie. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.